everyone, and welcome to the Joyful Breeze podcast. I'm Sue Exner, also known as the Joyful Breeze. And today, what I have in store for you is something I've been wanting to do for quite some time. So as I mentioned in other posts, I feel it's really important that you let people know when they've had a positive impact on you. And, you know, a lot of times we'll tell people when they have a negative impact, or we complain a lot, that sort of thing. Misery loves company, but we don't really talk positively as much as we do maybe on the negative side. So today I want to introduce you to two amazing women who I had the honor of working with at previous employment. They're both retired now, and I wanted to do this before they left, but we never just were able to find the time. So Kendra Mueller and Bain, they were two senior lenders at our former at FCC. So I still work at FCC, but former for them. And what I wanted to do today was highlight them and indicate my appreciation for what they taught me, for the impact that they had on me in so many different ways. And so I want to get into that a little bit further, you guys, in terms of being, I still remember the first time I met both of you, and it was different occasions. And you guys intimidated the crap out of me. I was like, holy, okay. You guys have a presence when you walk into the room. And in terms of like, you know, the joyful breeze is like, be the joyful breeze that comes into the room, right? You guys have that presence. And it didn't take me long to realize that you both have such an assertive and passionate skill set when it comes to not just agriculture, but when it comes to team and when it comes to leadership. Now, you weren't in formal leadership roles. You were senior lenders, but you had leadership skill sets, and you were viewed as leaders within the team. And I think that's what resonated the most with me. I would go to these ladies all the time if I needed a SME, like a subject matter expert, or, hey, give me your opinion on this, or what's going on in the environment there. You guys had such a wealth of information, and I know when you both left, we lost so much that went out the door. But how fortunate of us to have you guys for as many years as we did. So first, I want to start by welcoming you both. So Bain and Kendra Mueller, welcoming you both. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And thank you for your presence, because I know both are limited and valuable. So I appreciate you offering those up for me today. And for letting me shine the spotlight on you both, because I know you guys like accolades, but you don't like the spotlight. Like, you love having impact, but you don't like the spotlight. But today it's all about you guys. So first, I want to just kind of get into the conversation. I know, talking to other people that have worked with you, that they have said, you know what, Kendra and Bonnie, they led the way for me as a female in agriculture. They broke some molds for me. And so before we get into that, I would like each of you to take a couple of minutes just to talk about your career, like how you got into agriculture, why you stayed in agriculture, what you loved, but then how it felt to be a senior role in a male-dominated industry. Because that's, I think, what has resonated with a lot of individuals, is you were both very successful in each of your roles. And you're very similar, but you're very different at the same time. And I feel like you guys fed off your strengths together, like as you built your portfolios over the years. So, Bonnie, I'm going to start with you. So this floor is yours. You can talk, fire away.
Well, thank you, Sue. And I'm really glad that you said that we were the breeze and not the tornadoes, because sometimes I feel that we were maybe compared to a tornado more than a gentle breeze coming into a room. But you had a lot of questions in there. So
I know a lot to unpack.
I think the first one was,
I just like
how
flooded
did I
you.
get into? how did I get into ag lending, right?
Yeah.
Um, well, I mean, I grew up on a farm, and agriculture was really what I knew. And when I was in taking my degree in agriculture, FCC was advertising for summer students. I got a summer job there, and I just really resonated with the role of lending to producers at that time. It gave me a sense of really being able to make a difference and have an impact on a lot of people's lives in a really positive way. So, um, that's where I first got started as a summer student and then carried on. And then as I got into the role more and more, I realized that lending was just so much more. Like it was more than just, approving a loan or crunching numbers. I mean, it was really building relationships, building trust, and getting to know your customers, and that part of it really resonated with me because I love meeting people, I love getting to know them, and the feeling of being in a position to help them grow their business was just very powerful. And I still remember a couple of my clients coming up to me like 20, 30 years later, thanking me for the impact I had on their farms. And I mean, to me, I just thrived on that. That just was, very addictive, having that feeling. Even having gone through some downturns in the cycle and having to deal with farmers in difficulty, it still was a great role, a great position to be able to work with some just phenomenal people in the industry.
Well, let's pause there and let's flip over to Kendra to answer that same question. And in terms of why egg and why did you stay in egg for so long?
Well, thank you, Sue. So like Bonnie, I grew up on a farm, um, and I was a big part of our family farm growing up. From driving equipment to involved in the finances and so on. There was no doubt in my mind when I moved away from home and went to university that I would go into ag. That was just a perfect fit for me in terms of my interests and my passion. So I went to U of S, studied there, got my degree with a major in economics, and I had a ton of fun, probably more than I should have. I did some studying, but more importantly, I developed a network of people that helped me in my career. And it seemed that people in ag stay in ag. And so those people that I became very good friends with in university, I still have today as connections and friends, and we still keep in touch. I worked for a chemical company in a sales role, and then I worked for FCC, did a stint in the grain trade, but my passion and interest definitely was in finance. I'm very much a numbers person, very much a black and white person, and it also suited well to my life as a farmer and as a mother. So I married a farmer, so we farm at Humboldt, Saskatchewan, and also have 3 kids that are now adults. And the old saying that you can't have it all. Well, to some extent, there's some truth to that. And so for me, it was a decision whereby we couldn't move the farm. So I made the decision to stay in Humboldt and carry on with my career with Farm Credit in Humboldt. And it worked out really, really well for me personally. I was doing something I loved, and I was able to do it in a location that still allowed us to operate our farm as well and to raise our kids. I believed from a very early age, Sue, the importance of agriculture. And like I said, I had a really strong passion for it. But I mean, Bonnie will attest to this because she would have started around the same time as me, starting in the workforce in the late 80s. Agriculture was probably the least attractive industry at that point in time, late 80s and early 90s. It was, agriculture was suffering from the worst drought in many, many years, high interest rates, low commodity prices, dropping land values, and those were very difficult times in ag. But I still believed in the future of agriculture because you're feeding the world, you're producing food, and the world needs food. And I guess, as the years and decades have gone by, that's become even more and more at the forefront of our industry. And, as Bonnie said, involved in ag finance also gave me a lot of satisfaction. I remember not that long ago, people saying to me, you know, or you meet someone on the street and they'll say, I remember when you gave me my first loan. And, you know, today those producers are, you know, 25, 30 years into their farming cycle and doing well. So those tough times turned the industry, I believe, into something for the better, because the people that survived, the producers that survived those difficult years, are now the producers that are extremely astute business managers. And
Mhm.
farming is still a way of life, but predominantly it's a business. And so I very much enjoyed being focused up on an industry that I was passionate about, that I knew about, and that I had grown up with. So I guess that's why I joined ag, and that's why I stuck with
You
ag.
stayed with it. Well, and I think something that you said there, it interests me because we talk about impact and the fact that you two ladies had positive impact on me. But hearing someone say, I remember when you first gave me my first loan, you guys must have know the impact that you've had on so many people, and that must feel good. Like you didn't do it for that reason. You did it because you wanted to help other people and you wanted to see other people succeed. But I hope you guys take that to heart, that, wow, yeah, I did have impact. I did make a difference at the end of the day, which is amazing. One of the questions that I did have for you guys is when it, and I kind of alluded to it at the front, and we'll circle back to it, is working in a male-dominated industry. And so, you know, I'm sure there's been at times where you guys have been the only female in the room, or, you know, different situations where you found yourself, because men and at the end of the day, men and women are different. And there's nothing wrong with that. We approach things differently. But I would say that you each held your own. Every room that you've been in with me, you guys have held your own and then some. And so for all these young women that are starting out their careers, whether it's in agriculture or not, just starting out their careers, what's your advice to them in terms of how to own that room, how to own that space? What are some of your, whether it's your core values or whether your reminders to yourself of, you know, own the space? Because I think people shut down. I think people get intimidated by other people and they don't own their space, or else they go on the other side and they get really aggressive and they want to be in there and be in people's faces and I'm here, you have to see me. So I think for both of you, you were both again, the interactions I had with you, very calm. You still and we all know Bonnie, you like to talk, and there's nothing wrong with that because I'm a talker too, but you still were able to deliver what you needed to deliver in a professional manner. So I'm just curious, and Kendra, we'll start with you this time. How did you manage working in a male-dominated industry, and what is your advice for women just to own their own space in their career?
Yeah, really good question, Sue. I'll start by saying I never really looked at it from the perspective of it's a male-dominated industry. I looked at it from the perspective of, this is my job. I'm going to put my head down. I'm going to do my job. I'm going to make sure I know what I'm doing. I'm going to make sure I know what I'm talking about. And just because I don't have all the answers doesn't mean I can't be effective or I can't get things done. I mean, I'm a get it done kind of person. That's my MO. That's how I roll. You know, if you want a job to get done, you give it to me. I'll make sure it gets done. One of the things I think was key for me, and it's part of my, as you mentioned, core values, and that is work should be fun. It should be rewarding. It should be challenging. But more importantly, above and beyond all of that, what you're doing should align with your company's goals and ethics, or ethos is kind of the word that's being used now. And what I mean by that is, do you believe in where your company is going? Do you believe in what they're doing? Are they doing the right things? Are they treating their customers properly? And if you believe that the company you're working for and you can align to that, I think you can walk into a room with a sense of confidence and a sense of pride of the organization that you're representing. So to me, that's first and foremost. I never felt, I guess to some extent, that I was treated any differently that because I was female. I mean, as you point out, most meetings I was in, I was the only female in the room. I mean, I was in a combine clinic last fall, learning how to, the ins and outs of new technology in the combines. I was the only female in that room too. So it isn't just at the boardroom tables or at,
Great point.
lender meetings. It's all over the place in the industry. And I guess there's no shame in not having all the answers either. But I always approached my job with a sense of professionalism and cooperation. And in some ways, maybe being a female was an advantage. I think it's easier to ask questions, perhaps, if you're a female. At least I found it so. And I think being a female gives you an advantage when you're in a disagreement as well. I think it's easier to work through solutions when things are difficult. There's less likely, for tempers to flare or that type of thing. Perhaps I've been in meetings where there's preconceptions about, oh, does she actually know anything? I never felt that way. I mean, I think as soon as the conversation started and people realized that yeah, she probably does know what she's talking about, that went away relatively quickly. I worked hard. I think, you don't get anywhere in life without doing the grind, without putting in that extra effort. And I always put my own values first. I never let things sit or stew in difficult situations. And, I guess an example I could give of that was it was fairly common where if, the first meeting I would go to with a new customer and they would say, oh, you're better looking than the last guy we had. I say, oh, well, thanks. Now tell me about that, capital purchase that you were looking at.
Divert.
Yeah, divert. Yeah. Just like with kids, I guess, right? Yeah, sometimes you have to take those extra steps to ensure you have all the information. You do your homework before you go to the meeting, for sure. And don't bluff your knowledge. And what I mean by that is I actually had a good example. It was fairly recent. I saw some wonky things happening on a financial statement, some wonky adjustments that were being made, and I didn't understand them. And I went back to the customer and I asked them about them, and they explained them to me, and they were very, very complicated. And I said, man, I've never seen anything like that. And they said, don't worry about it. Neither had we. We had a hard time finding accountants that even knew what that meant. I said, interesting. I said, that's interesting to me. And the customer said, yeah, I know, me too. And you know what? You're the only one that's even asked us about it. No one else even had the courage to ask us what that meant.
Wow.
So don't be scared to ask questions.
Because asking questions builds credibility.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, flip it over to you, Bonnie.
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge that I had being, female in a male-dominated role, unfortunately for me, I did have situations. Kendra said she never had that sense that, nobody said anything to her in situations where she was the only female. I was in a meeting where there weren't enough chairs. And one of the guys said, oh, that's okay, honey. You can sit on my lap.
Wow.
And I'm like, excuse me? Like, that was, and that happened more than once, that type of sense. And it just, it really got my ire up. Like, I got really mad and went, how dare he be like that? And I guess that kind of set the tone for me, unfortunately, going forward, that I felt that there was still a lot of, misogynistic thinking out there, and being young and female both going against me. I felt that I had to work twice as hard and be twice as smart. So, I mean, after my degree, I went back to school. I got 2 other degrees. I was constantly trying to upgrade my skills. And to Kendra's point, having to get all that knowledge and understand situations and ask a million questions. And if anybody out there that knows me, I take notes like nobody's business. So when I'm in meetings, whether it's with one customer or at events, I take copious amounts of notes, and I'm constantly going back to them, and I'm always bringing them up in conversations to try to build my own knowledge base, but also to share that knowledge with the other people that I'm working with. And you know, I found that having some knowledge or having some really good information, building that credibility, getting your credentials out early in a conversation will oftentimes, for me, was able to get people over the fact that I was female. Like, you know, Kendra's comment about the guy saying, "Oh, you're better looking than the last guy." Well, I've had those types of comments too, but as soon as I, you know, started talking about the deal at hand or the topic at hand, showing them that I had the knowledge, it certainly made things a lot easier. But sadly, I still think it's you know, something out there today. I just saw actually this week in the news that Stats Canada said that women still make almost 10% less than men in the exact same job in Canada. So I mean, consider what it was like 40 years ago when Kendra and I were starting. I mean, yeah, it was challenging to say the least. And you know, being female, we are, like Kendra said, we're get it done people, and I think that I just did the same thing, put my head down, got the work done, and proved to people that I knew what I was doing.
For me, what stands out just by hearing both of you speak is the dedication you put towards building your own personal brand, because that's really what you did. You built your brand and you gained the credibility along the way. And it went from probably those, you know, inappropriate comments to, hey, tell me what you think about this deal, or looking to you for your guidance and your expertise. And that says a lot about what you did to build your own personal brand. And I have to say too, Bonnie, like the notes that you would take, like, so Bonnie would go to meetings and she would take notes, not just for your own benefit though, like you would share those notes with the team and say, hey, this is what I learned. And so I felt that you also had that desire to support the team. And I guess that would be a question. My next question for you is I'm not quite sure how to frame this. And it's more about how you showed up for your team, because you weren't a formal leader. Neither of you were formal leaders, but you were leaders, viewed as leaders. And that does play a role in your in how you show up at work. So what did you take on, and what did you say, you know what, I'm not taking this one on for the team? Because if changes, you know, how you embrace change, others could see it and others could feel it. And so people would look to you, oh, how is Kendra responding, or how is Bonnie responding? And so how did you manage that? Because there's a lot of individuals, men and women, that are in roles that are in non-leadership roles, but are viewed as leaders and are looked to when change is occurring. And so how did you manage keeping your chin up, or staying positive, or addressing, you know, if something wasn't aligning right, addressing it? Like, what did you do in those situations? Bonnie, we'll start with you.
Of course, yeah. That's a tough one too, because there was lots of times that I didn't agree with, you know, change that was happening. I think, circling back to the first part of your comments about, you know, team and building team and that sort of thing, I think that really getting to know people, who they are, what their strengths are, you know, how you fit together as a team, what supports you can provide each other. You know, over the course of time, I got to know the people that I worked with day in and day out really, really well. You got to know who their family was, what their likes and dislikes were, what bugged them, you know, what you know, what they could bring to the team as far as their strengths. And so then when things did change, like, you know, if there was major changes coming about, you know, we could sit back and we could have an open conversation about it with no judgment, you know, because you had built that trust and built that relationship with people that you surround yourself with and work with every day. Like, you know where you're coming from. Like, half the time people will say something and you don't understand the context from which it's coming. Like what's that person's background? Like, why do they think that way? But with our close-knit team, we knew each other so well. And so if I made an offhanded comment, everybody knew where it was coming from. They knew, okay, I know why Bonnie's thinking that way because this happened 5 years ago, or something like that. And so it was a lot easier to talk through things with your team because we were so close and we had absolutely no hesitation to say what was really on our mind. So very honest conversation, but we got that trust and that relationship built up so strong over time that, like I say, you could have those really tough conversations and have a bad day or say something
Right.
inappropriate, and everybody's not holding it against you because they know who you are, where it's coming from, and in many cases they were, the teammates that I had around with me all the time were my support team, right? And we did that for each other,
And I think
and it
you
really
make
helped.
a really valid point in that, Bonnie, in the fact that both of you were strong lenders, but you didn't do it alone. Like, you had a strong team around you. And in order to be like that high achieving team, to your point, you needed to understand how each other worked and be able to talk to one another frankly, so that you could like deal with issues in the moment and then move forward, right? So that's what I'm hearing you say at this, the importance of a team, a strong team that surrounds you. But Kendra?
Yeah, thanks, Sue. So it's tough for me to say this, but it is true. I mean, both Bonnie and I were extremely successful in our careers and in our results.
It is true.
And yeah, and it's hard to say that. Easier now as I get older, but maybe I just didn't want to jinx it along the way. I don't know. In any event, but you don't get there without a strong team behind you. And I was always extremely fortunate in the people that I worked with directly and that I reported to directly. And I guess was something that was cultured and nurtured over a period of time. And we became not just coworkers, but also very good friends.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess when change happens, whether you agree with it or not, it's always difficult to manage because, you're just used to doing things a certain way. And when a new way comes along and you have to upset the apple cart, everything needs to be redone. And so some of those changes were good and were easy to align to, as long as I was aligned to the company's ethics and where it was going. But some of the changes, of course, are not. And you're not going to get on board with everything all the time. And I think for me, I had good coaches that I went to, good bosses that I went to when I wasn't on board with the changes, and who either gave me perspective or coaching and said, these changes are what they are. We got to work with them. Or, if you don't like these changes, then do something about it. Those were kind of your options, right? And I guess as long as you do something about it in a respectful, courteous, professional way, that's fine. And that's how it should be. But the changes you can't affect any impact on, the ones you have to live with are the difficult ones. And I believe that, I don't have to publicly decree that I'm agreeing to the changes, but I might have to publicly decree that I will live with them, so to
Right.
speak. And
No,
so,
I would like that, I think resonates with me, and that, you're not always going to, it's kind of like a sibling or, someone, you might not always get along, but you learn to get along with each other and know what your boundaries are. Right. So, and with work, I think it's the same thing. And I truly don't believe that anyone wakes up in the morning to say, I'm going to ruin someone's day today. Like, that's never anyone's intent. I don't feel it is. And so it's, you look for, I think, some terminology like be curious and lean into some of those decisions and to help with change. So So the next question I have for you guys is around the word trailblazer. So you both have been referred to trailblazers over the last the number of years that I've known you. What does that word mean to you? And do you feel that you were a trailblazer? And I'll start with Kendra.
Okay. Well, I guess my first response to that is, am I a trailblazer? I don't know. Maybe I am. Maybe I don't know. Anyway, I can say this. I am a highly motivated individual. I like to work hard and I like to get results and I like to see results and I like to get things done and I like to get it done right. And, I guess that's probably helped me more than anything along the way is just my innate, that's hardwired into my DNA. We talked about being the only female in the room and I never really thought about this till fairly recently, but when I was doing my handoffs, when I was retiring to the individual that was going to replace me, we had a meeting in the boardroom of a bank building in a downtown urban center on their 30th floor, and there was probably 15 or 20 of us in the room, and I was the only female in that room. And to me, that was a bit of an aha moment. Here I am, 35 years into my career, and I'm still the only female in the room. And I guess, yeah, that maybe makes me a bit of a trailblazer. And it's a little disappointing, to be honest, that there aren't more females sitting at that boardroom table. In any event, I think a lot of my success came from relationship building. So, people like you, Sue, like we've known each other now for a couple of decades, but, I mean, I relied on you for your expertise in marketing and sponsorships and promotions, and you relied on my expertise on where those dollars should get spent and how they should get spent. And so, trusted partnerships that develop into long-term partnerships that develop into long-term friendships and trust. And I guess for me, I think also my deep experience, my years and years in agriculture helped me to see the art of the possible. After a while, you just innately know what projects, what solutions are probably going to be successful, and you can select the winners in terms of management style as well. You talk to enough people, you get to know, the skill sets that are required, to make the tough decisions or to get to the next level or to overcome certain barriers. So, and the other thing I think is about knowing your strengths, but also more importantly, knowing your weaknesses. So surrounding yourself with people that have the strengths that you don't, people that can fill in the gaps, people that can say to you, hey, yeah, we can do it that way, but wouldn't this way be better? Things like that. So, and I, I guess to help, other ways to help me along the way was to seek advice from people, from my boss, from my coworkers, from my friends. And in the end, I mean, the decision's mine and I'm accountable for it, but it sure doesn't help to get some other perspectives on it as well.
What about you, Bonnie?
Well, it's interesting. The one thing a lot of people don't realize about being a trailblazer, it's exhausting. And I think Kendra will attest to that too. I mean, sometimes like when you're working on something and you feel so strongly you've got the information, you've got the background, you get it, and you like this is the right thing to do, but no one else gets it. It's just like, oh, hello, how am I talking a different language? And it was the hardest part for me was trying to overcome that frustration that I had with not being able to explain myself very well or to articulate, my knowledge with other people. And, much like, what Kendra said about having people around you to support you and mentor you and everything else, I think for me, a lot of it was having people that were able to think maybe not the same as me, but understand the way I thought and could support the decisions that I was making, and also got it, whether it was, through a different process, but they got it as well. And it was like I say, it was difficult to get over that frustration level, and finding ways to give the comfort level or change the process, or before we had talked about when change comes in, and doing something about it. It was having those people around me again, the support team, the team that I worked with every day, people that understood me and knew me, and I knew them, where we could have those open conversations. And I think that being a trailblazer, yeah, it takes a lot of hard work. And I mean, that is the absolute truth, because you got to do more research, more digging, more questions, asking over and over again, trying to look at things in 100 different ways to come up with the right solution. And so, I take a look at one deal I had. It took I think it took over 7 years to finally get it approved.
Wow.
But it's going really well. But it took that long to get people around me that were the decision makers to get the same comfort level that I had. So yeah, being a trailblazer, it's fun when you actually get things done. Like it's a bit of a high, but it's a lot of work.
And I think what I, thinking about so many different women that are in the workforce, that sort of thing, like I think surrounding yourself by a strong network and being willing to put yourself out there and make connections with people, and even drill down, like, I know this might be in the weeds at all, but like having a firm handshake, like it
100%.
drives me insane when I go up to someone and it's like this weak little handshake. Like, have a firm handshake, because that also is part of your brand, and it instills confidence and credibility, and that's owning that space right in that room. So this next question, I really curious how you guys are going to answer this. So what would you say to women who have been told they're either not enough or they're too much? Either one can start.
I can start. I would say you have to recognize who's making the comment. I've had people make comments to me about, oh, you're too aggressive, or you're too something, and I finally got them to respond, and the answer was because they didn't like the way I dressed. They said you dress too loud, or too you power dress, and I'm like,
Power dress. That's a new term.
You wear a lot of black and a lot of red. Those are my favorite colors. I'm sorry, but they felt intimidated. That the answer was because of how I dressed, and I'm like, really? So if somebody says to a young female that's out there in the business place, and someone gives them feedback that they're, like you say, either too much or not enough, ask them why. Ask that person, why are you saying that? What is it about me? Do you not like the way I dress? Do you not like the way I talk? Am I overpowering the conversation? Like, what specifically is it that makes you feel that way? And if they can't answer the question, then I'm sorry, the comment is unfounded. But if they can tell you, then you can analyze, is that something I want to change? Or is that actually the direction that I want to go with my brand?
And I think I think the key thing there, Bonnie, too, is when you ask somebody the question, like the why, I think that's huge. But it's also knowing inside to not take it personal and to not get angry, like in their response, like how they respond. It's about being curious and leaning into that feedback and then determining how do you want to proceed with that feedback. Because I know for myself, like there's been times when when I have a vision and I want to go and other people aren't quite there with me yet. And I've learned over the years, I need to bring people along with me. Like people aren't where I am right now. And instead of getting frustrated, I need to be patient and I need to explain and like lean into what they're missing in terms of my vision. Right. So I think to your point, asking why is a huge component.
Well, and I think just to quickly say, the other thing too is, again, people have an unconscious bias. We all do. Maybe you remind them of somebody else that they have a really negative experience with. That's happened to me too, where people say, "Oh, actually, you remind me of so and so, and I really don't like that person." I'm sorry, but so that subconscious bias comes in lots of times too. So it's understanding where that other person is coming from in just so many ways that I would say find out.
Find out why. Kendra, what about you? Too much or not enough?
Yeah, my answer is pretty simple. Don't listen to anyone but yourself. Like no one knows what you're really thinking. No one knows what's motivating you. No one knows who you are, what you're fighting for. Just bet on yourself. Look around the room. Pretend everyone in that room is the same age as you. Maybe they don't have 20 years experience on you. Are they any smarter than you? Any more knowledgeable than you at the same age? I'm going to suggest not. So use your resources, your own resources, read, but at the end of the day, bet on yourself. It's kind of like I liken it to the comments in a social media post. Just don't read them.
Nice.
But do accept feedback from trusted partners because that is a gift. And I think, find someone in your professional life that you trust that has your best interests at heart and will give you feedback in a way that can help make you a better employee, a better person, a better human being, more professional, whatever the case may be. I mean, I had people like that in my life. I remember my very, very first manager at Farm Credit sat me down one year at an annual review and gave me some feedback. And in the moment, I was like, I was upset. I was annoyed. I was irritated. I was angry. But at the end of the day, when I stopped and thought about it, I recognized he had my best interests at heart, and he was giving me information that helped me become more self-aware. And so ignore the naysayers, bet on yourself, and accept feedback as a gift from those you trust.
And I would say too that from my own personal experience, like when I love that in terms of betting on yourself, because that's what I'm doing with this. This is for me, really. It's something that I wanted to pursue and I'm pursuing it. And I know when I mentioned it to both of you, you each gave me that encouragement to, yeah, go do it, Sue. Like, if that's what you want to do, do it. Like, and just that encouragement definitely helped me because you get in your head, right? You start creating stories in your head and your confidence might waver. And you have to come back to like, why are you doing it? Why am I doing this? Right. And so I appreciate your words of encouragement along the way with this and for being here today. So we're going to wrap up right away because I know we're getting tight on time. So I want to end with a little rapid fire customer experience questions because I know you guys both are true advocates for strong customer experience. So 1-word answers. Okay. I know it's hard, but you can do it. So I'm going to start. I'll do Bonnie and then Kendra. 1 word to describe excellent customer service.
Commitment.
Wow.
Most underrated part of the customer journey.
Paperwork.
I'm not sure this is on the right track, but answering the phone.
Yeah, no, 100%.
How many times do you phone someone and you get a voicemail?
Yeah.
Whether they phone you phone them.
1 thing companies should stop doing. in customer service?
Robocalls.
Surveys.
Surveys, interesting. I had one more here. What's one word your customers would use to describe your brand?
Trustworthy.
Love
Integrity.
it. So there's a lot more, but I'll let you guys off the hook at those because I know it's hard to be thrown on the spot asking questions like that. So, but I just want to say thank you once again. You definitely have had a major impact, not just in the agriculture world, but in for women in general. I know there's so many individuals that have talked to me about you guys, even when you guys retired. It's just like, the reason I'm here is because of them. And that's why I feel that you guys are trailblazers. So if anything after this, you can go home. Maybe we can get you branded shirts that say Trailblazer on it. Hey, I think
I'd wear it.
yeah, I think we should do that. So appreciate your time, appreciate all of your insights, and would love to have you guys back again and dive into another topic, right? So so much information up there, just try to extract it as much as we can. So appreciate it. If you have any questions, comments, please add them. Send them my way. And just to conclude, remember, be the breeze. Uplift others with positivity. It will sure brighten someone's day, and more importantly, it will brighten your own.